Well, because I'm really a fan of these speed rounds, we're going to move on to another speed round on legislative reform. So we talked about education. Now I have a couple of questions that pertain to legislative reform. And Lee, you'll answer these questions first.
Okay.
So this goes to Bonus Gate. What is your opinion of the legislative reforms recommended by the Bonus Gate grand jury? And specifically, do you support or oppose? So this is yes or no, support or oppose. And the first question is reducing the size of the legislature.
No.
Imposing, or I'm sorry, Ken, your response to that. Yes or no, support or oppose. You can expand on it later.
Okay. Yes.
Lee, the question is imposing term limits.
No, I think that's up to the voters to decide.
Okay, yes or no on this, or support or oppose, and then you can embellish.
No.
Ken, the response to you.
No.
Lee, do you support or oppose abolishing so-called walking around money or wages?
Yes.
Ken.
No.
And finally, Lee, do you support or oppose eliminating per diems and therefore requiring members to prove actual expenses and submit receipts?
Yes.
And Ken.
Yes.
So now the question, the same as before, discuss your responses to the questions in the speed round and or offer other recommendations for legislative reform. And Ken, you would respond to this first.
Bonus Gate is a scar on the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Harrisburg, no doubt, was headed in the wrong direction, and certainly need to be fixed. Now, just repeat that question so I make sure.
The questions that we asked.
Just the first one.
Reducing the size of the legislature.
With respect to reducing the size of the legislature, as I have said before, yes, I can support that, but we have to do it, and this is critical, in a fair and equitable way. Trust me when I tell you, when it comes to big city Philadelphia, big city Pittsburgh, they will take every dime and every ounce of energy they possibly can. If we could do it, as I said, in a fair and equitable way, that's okay. But if we tip the balance, for example, to Philadelphia, we here in Northeast Pennsylvania will never be heard from again. Trust me when I tell you. We fight every single day down there for Northeast Pennsylvania and for your voice to be heard. We have to be very, very careful. And if and when we do that, if we shrink the size, we go from having 70,000 people to represent to maybe double that, 140,000 people to represent. And then do we dilute our accessibility? So what I'm saying is, if we could do it in a responsible way, yes, but that remains to be seen.
Lee, the question to you.
Okay. It's really simple here. I don't think the problem is the size of the legislature. I think that, to be honest with you, Lackawanna County at one time was part of Luzerne County. It was too big. I just think that we have the right amount of legislators. We just don't have the right kind of legislators. We need legislators that are going to go back to their district and work 5 days a week and only go to Harrisburg to vote or to do their committee work. I just think that too often we elect them. They drive back and forth for per diem. They hang out with the people in Harrisburg. We get nothing done. I mean, I've hit so many doors and so many people are disgusted. They've never seen a state representative work in their district. They've seen them on the TV, on the newspaper, and on the radio. And the problem is we're electing the wrong people. We have to start electing people who know what their job is when they're in the legislature, and it's to represent people and not themselves. And that's our real problem here. It's not the size of the legislature. It's getting these legislators out of Harrisburg and working for us. That's the problem.
Ken, do you have a rebuttal for that?
No.
We're kind of running a little bit out of time here, and I still have a few more questions I want to get through, so we're going to eliminate the rebuttal on these next few questions. I want to stay for one more question on legislative reform. And we talked about changing the size of the legislature and a couple of other things that would actually require constitutional amendments. So the question for you is this. Many amendments to the Pennsylvania Constitution are proposed during every legislative session. Do you think it is time to convene a constitutional convention? Why or why not? And Lee, you'll respond first.
I absolutely believe it's time for a constitutional convention in Pennsylvania. I think the residents of the Commonwealth have to have their voices heard. I think we have a legislature that's out of control and doesn't represent us. I think we have a legislature in Harrisburg that represents special interest. And to be quite honest with you, all the soft money for elections that's going through Harrisburg, we've got legislators that raise money and campaign through mailers. And I think it's really a detriment to the residents of this Commonwealth. I think that state legislators should knock on doors when they're running for office. And I just think that we're flooded with so much money that I think that a constitutional convention would give the opportunity for the residents of this Commonwealth to take control of their government back. It's really very simple. There's a lot of issues that should come up. Everybody's afraid that if they have a constitutional convention, special interests will take control of it and set the agenda. And I don't believe that. I believe for once the people in this Commonwealth have to stand up, have their voices heard, whether they're Democrats, Republicans, independents. So many people have walked away from the legislative process in this Commonwealth. And the only way to bring them back in is to give them a voice, and we've allowed politics to drown them out. Democrats, Republicans, I mean, why aren't there independents on the ballot? Why isn't everybody on the ballot? We've got real problems in Pennsylvania that we can't find solutions to because we need a constitutional convention to reorganize our government and put political parties on the sidelines and make people important as they should be.
Ken, the response to you.
I would support a constitutional convention. We must make sure it's done in a nonpartisan way and follow a certain protocol, which is dictated by the Constitution. Along with that, it would be critically essential to make sure that all Pennsylvanians understand the issues within the Constitutional Convention. They must know every issue from top to bottom, inside and outside. Because if they're uninformed, then at the end of the day, the Constitutional Convention can become a negative instead of the positive that I believe it can and should be.
The next question will go to Ken for the first response. Ken, you're now one of 203 members of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. How do you make a difference while balancing the needs of the Commonwealth versus the needs of your own district? And can you deliver, how will you deliver on the promises that you make now as a candidate?
Well, you learn rather quickly. You lead two lives as a representative. You go and you work hard in Harrisburg, and you work hard in your district. And for 4 years now, I have learned how to work with both sides of the aisle. I have learned the system so that I can be an effective legislator for the 112th district. When it's time to go to Harrisburg and be there for session, I'm the first guy there. But when session is over, I'm the first guy to see Harrisburg in the rearview mirror, because I truly believe that the people's work is done here in the district. But it's getting to know, and particularly through, I sit on the Education Committee, Labor Committee, Aging Committee, and the Veterans Committee. And this is where you get to learn what your fellow representatives are all about on both sides of the aisle, and the issues. And then you bring that back to your district.